So we have chocolate has this powerful antioxidant component to it and this powerful anti-inflammatory property. I'm here to say that the new studies coming out recently have found that the inflammation, stopping inflammation in your body is the key factor, all right, in stopping a lot of these diseases. Oxidation is important, but stopping the inflammation is the #1 thing, because if those walls are smooth inside and don't have inflammation, the fat's not going to stick there. Okay? So we've got to stop inflammation. All right? We talk about this ORAC value, and I get hit all the time about ORAC values, and people say, my ORAC is bigger than your ORAC. Right? It's a pissing contest. And I'm a doctor, I can say words like that. And mine's bigger than yours type of thing. And the trouble is you can artificially adjust any number. I can take vitamin C, vitamin E, beta carotene, add it to any drink, any beverage, to anything, and make the ORAC value very high. The key thing to remember with chocolate is it's the only one that's a natural, okay, high ORAC value. There's nothing added to the chocolate. So when you have that raw score 80,000, that's just the raw cacao, okay? It's not artificial. And so we have that value of high. Now, we also have the advantage of looking at ORAC values inside of our body, because let me tell you, very little of what sometimes your chocolate you take is absorbed in the body. But it doesn't take much of that particular strong cocoa to go to those little receptors to turn on the chemical reactions, okay? If you had a weak chocolate that didn't have a very high ORAC value or wasn't a quality chocolate, there's not enough to be absorbed to even turn on that reaction, okay? So when we look at blood levels inside the body, serum ORAC levels, which is a totally different thing because that's based on what you absorb, we find that it works. We also find that those little epicatins and catechins, they're small, they're absorbed in the gut, and that's what's giving us our reaction. So when I do the studies at University of Utah, that's the chemicals we're seeing, is the epicatins and catechins that are giving us the results that we talk about, okay? So stopping the inflammation and keeping that oxidation down. And what if we do? If we keep inflammation down, oxidation, what have the studies shown? What happens? Okay, we know the hypertensive thing we've talked about. The epicatins and catechins increase something called nitric oxide. And nitric oxide vasodilates the blood vessels, makes them bigger, and as they get bigger, then it drops the blood pressure. Now, if you have normal blood pressure or low blood pressure, it doesn't make it lower, okay? But if you have high, it gives that extra nitric oxide, turns on, makes that blood vessel dilate a little bit or relax a little bit, and your blood pressure drops. So we know that chocolate does it. All the studies have shown that it decreases blood pressure. The University of Utah study coming out, again, showed a decrease in blood pressure, okay? Even as they said last year in the study, even a bite a day of chocolate makes a difference, okay? Now, we also found out that it helps lower the cholesterol by stopping that oxidation. Now, even if we don't lower the cholesterol level, a lot of people say, well, my cholesterol level is not all the way down. The thing that it does is it lowers some people's cholesterol, increases the good cholesterol, but it stops the bad cholesterol from being oxidized, making it so it can't stick on there. So, even if your cholesterol is a little high, if we can make that cholesterol so it doesn't stick, then we're better off there too. And that's what we're finding, is stopping the oxidation of the fat. And then the other thing, it keeps those platelets from sticking together. If we keep the platelets from sticking together like aspirin, then we can stop those clots from being formed in those little teeny blood vessels and stopping heart attacks or strokes. So overall, the studies that have been either long-term from the Dutch study over 15 years to the short-term studies that have been over 2 weeks to the group of Indians off the coast of Panama, all the studies conclude that chocolate in a certain amount, which we're going to talk about in a second, in a certain amount decreases your blood pressure, keeps the fat from being oxidized, keeps the platelets from sticking together, and stops cardiovascular disease. Up to even 50% reduction in mortality from doing that. The other thing that's important to remember, even lowering your blood pressure by 5%, even 5 points, translates into a 50% reduction in heart attacks and strokes. Dr. Britton and I were talking this week about that the key thing for chocolate right now is a preventive agent. I'm not going to go out there and say that chocolate's going to cure your hypertension, going to cure your diseases and make you perfect. But I'm going to tell you, if you start chocolate now, especially the younger you are, the more prevention it's had that you won't get the diseases to begin with. Those who do have it, it's going to lower the blood pressure a little bit, lower the cholesterol, help with it. But the key thing with chocolate right now is preventive. We want to prevent diseases. I want to stop these pre-hypertensives from becoming hypertensive. I want to stop pre-diabetics from becoming diabetic. Now let's change the subject a little bit and talk about diabetes, because this is very important. This week a study just came out published in the Journal of the American College of Cardiology, the JACC Journal, that said that they were giving people chocolate daily in a drink form, and they reversed blood vessel damage in diabetics taking medications. Very important, okay? It was published just this week. It reversed the damage done in blood vessels on diabetics taking medications. So these are already bad diabetics because they're taking medications. They start the chocolate and it reversed some of the damage. The blood vessels were able to dilate better and do better. I think that's phenomenal. The same thing as when we report coming conference time in a few weeks, we're finding the early preliminary stuff on our study at University of Utah. Again, looks like the chocolate makes the insulin work better and seems to reverse that damage, that it really does make a difference in diabetics. Chocolate can stop the diabetic damage that's going on, it looks like. And so we're going to see more and more studies, but very interesting, it came out just this week. Now, the key thing on this was, and if you read today's WebMD, came out today in WebMD saying that this study said that it can help reverse damage of diabetics, but this chocolate's not available to the public because they had to have 900 milligrams of total flavonoids, or epicatins and catechins, is where they got the results. When it was less, they didn't get the results. Okay? This chocolate's not available to the public. And then it said in WebMD today, because the common in the United States today is 100 or less milligrams of flavonoid in a total day's chocolate. So most of the chocolate that you take out there is only 100 milligrams or less. To get the results, you need 900. Okay? 3 weeks ago, a big study came out in the Journal of Food and Agricultural Science that said, and this is done in Spain, that said that alkalizing the chocolate, Dutching it, fermentation of the chocolate decreased the epicatinin and catechin levels by 68 to 70%. Can you believe that? By just alkalizing it and roasting it beforehand, or fermentation, even the fermentation, leaving it in the sun to ferment, is which the traditional process has been, reduces it by 70%. Now, this is something that we haven't talked about because it's first talked about since this article came out. There's another group of flavonoids besides epicatins and catechin, quercetin, which is found in onions and broccoli and apples that give a lot of benefit. Before we said there wasn't much in chocolate, there's very little. Okay? Well, they found out in this raw chocolate, if you don't alkalize it, that alkalization and fermentation decreases this other group of flavonoids. There's two other groups of flavonoids, okay, that are important in your health. Reduces those by 90%, to the point that most people said they weren't even in chocolate. But if you look at the chocolate that we have, the raw cacao that we have that's not been fermented and alkalized, we also have this other group of flavonoids that are in it. So we're not only getting the epicatinin and catechin benefits, we're getting a group of other flavonoids and flavonols that are important in our health. So that's even why Shasai we get even some more benefits, because we have extra antioxidants in it than other chocolate. 90% reduction. Is that amazing? 68% reduction in epicatins and catechins. So I don't care if it says 83% cacao. I don't care if it says 50%. It depends on what the chocolate is. Because 90% of crap is crap. Right? I learned that in medicine too. So 90% of crap is crap, and so, you know, Shasai is 83% for those that are interested, but it's 83% of solid flavonoids. So Lancet magazine last year, the editorial in December said, you know, chocolate is not good for you, and that's what all the newspapers took off and wrote. But the reasoning is that most of the chocolate you get today is only 100 milligrams of total flavonoids. And what good is it? We're finding that they're adding dark food color into chocolate. They're taking vegetable oil, okay, and adding it to chocolate because cocoa butter costs too much. Chocolate's expensive. Chocolate is very expensive, and if you're doing mass production of it, Hershey's and Mars and the rest of these companies, you can't afford to get good dark chocolate, okay? And so they have to they just grind up whatever they can to do it, and they use vegetable oil so that's cheaper than cocoa butter. They add dark food color. Now, I gave this talk a few months ago in Atlanta at the Great American Dessert Expo, and there was a guy sitting in the audience. This is a chocolate festival, basically. And he said, I'm a consultant to the chocolate business. I don't even know about your company. I've never heard of your company before, but I can tell you that I've been in the factories when we've been putting dark food coloring in it. Because we know that dark chocolate sells. But people aren't getting what they want. So Lancet magazine is saying, watch what chocolate you're getting. demand that you know the number of flavonoids, milligrams of flavonoids on your chocolate,